Hey guys, it's Mia here, and if you read the title, then you know today we are going to be talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, I do have the full series on DVD. I got this like a couple years ago now at this point, and with that, I also got The Legend of Korra too. It's more adult, more grown-up series, as they call it. That's not my words. So, the reason I'm talking about this now instead of when I got the DVD is because when I got the DVDs, I didn't have my channel yet, and it recently came up on Netflix. So I decided to binge it for like the 5th time now, since it would be easier than hooking up my DVDs to get that, to watch these. Now, I'm going to introduce the characters and then talk about them first before I get into my review, like I do in the other stuff. So first, you have Katara and Sokka, Aang. Let me get the better one. Then you have, of course, the main character, Aang. And then you have Zuko. And then you have Toph. And there's General Iroh. And then the two that aren't on any of these DVDs are, let me put them up on the screen, but they are Appa, the flying bison, and Momo, the lemur. Now I'm going to talk about these characters in the order that they are introduced in the show, so that way it's just simple. So first, you have, where did the DVD go? Katara and Sokka. Now they are actually the ones that find Aang trapped in this iceberg. And let me start with Katara. Katara is the last airbender of the Southern Water Tribe because the Fire Nation took them all away, one by one. And I know I see this a lot on like other reviews or like just general people talking about the show online. And I really don't like how everyone complains about how motherly Katara is, because it's not her fault she had to step into the motherly role as soon as she did. It was not her fault that her mother got taken, or not taken, killed by the Fire Nation. And because her mother got taken away so early, due to the Fire Nation, she had to step up into the role of their mother. And I know that sometimes it does get a bit much, but to me, Katara is kind of the meat that keeps the whole team calm and keeps them together. She knows when it's time to like be more motherly toward the team. And with all the characters being as young as they are, they need someone in that motherly role. And that is why I don't see why everyone complains so much about Katara being the mother figure, because I feel that she really keeps the team together and knows when to keep people calm and to be like, okay, we have hope here. This is not a hopeless situation. We will get through it. We'll get through it together. And we just need to stay calm and not let this get worse than it is, because then we will have a problem. And that is perfectly fine with me. We need someone in that motherly role, because this cast of characters is not that old. Katara is 13, I believe. Sokka is 14. Aang is 12. Zuko is 16. And Toph, I don't remember her age. But the cast of characters is really young, so they need someone to play mother figure. And I don't see why she gets so much hate for being that figure. And then there's Sokka, the one that is able to keep the tension down. He knows when it's time to be funny and when it's time to be serious. Not only is he the comic relief, but he is a warrior. He's the planner. He's the idea man, as they call him. He's the one that says, okay, this is what we need to do and this is how we're going to do it. but he is also really good at the comic relief. He is like one of the funniest characters in the whole show. And it just helps to have that comic relief, because without the comic relief of Sokka, this show is so much darker. But I also love that he can be silly and off the wall crazy and then switch right into warrior mode when he needs to get the job done. He knows when it's time to be serious and when it's time to buckle down and when it's time to be a dork. And that is really good. And then you have Zuko. Now, when I first watched this show, I absolutely hated Zuko. I hated him. I was like, he's just this asshole that feels no other emotion besides hate and is trying to kill this 12-year-old boy because he's the Avatar. And he's the Prince of the Fire Nation, the people that caused all this heartache and this war in the first place. And honestly, Zuko quickly became a really good character in my opinion, because he had so much depth to him. And like, after seeing what he went through with his dad being banished because of such a stupid reason, he talked out of turn and put his opinion into a war meeting. And his dad saw that as disrespect and scarred him literally for life. At 13 years old, he scarred him so bad and then banished him to be on his own because he spoke out of turn. And you get to see him go from this hateful character that wants nothing but his father's love back to saying, you know what, screw you. I don't need you. I mean, you banished me for something so stupid. You scarred me for life, physically and mentally. I don't need you in my life. Screw your honor. I'm going to take my honor back my way. And you know, watching him go from like this villain who's just trying to regain his father's love into this soft-spoken, not sure what to do with himself person is both heartwarming, funny, and heartbreaking. He is so broken by his father and so trained in hatred that he doesn't know what to do with himself once he realizes he doesn't need this hate to run his life. And it's just so heartwarming to watch him try to integrate himself into the team. And it's just, I ended up really liking Zuko toward the end of the show, and his backstory is just so sad. And then you have Toph. Now, this girl will put you in your place faster than you could say, oh shit. So, Toph is blind, but she uses earthbending and vibrations in order to see where she is going and the people around her. So when they're flying around on Appa, she's very uncomfortable because not only can she barely see outside of Appa, but she's like, who knows how high in the air. And being an earthbender, that is very uncomfortable for her because she has nothing that she can use to defend herself, and she can barely see. And Toph is one of my favorite, I'm saying this about every single one of the characters, but Toph is one of my favorite characters because she's just so quick-witted and smart-assy, and it's just, she is such a good teacher to Aang in her own way, and she clashes with Aang a lot. I mean, she calls Aang Twinkle Toes because Aang is so light on his feet because he's an airbender that it's hard for Toph to see him and to know how to fight him because she's used to being very rooted and very centered because she's an earthbender. And it's just, their whole dynamic is fun. And she also clashes with Katara. I blanked on her name for some reason. She clashes with Katara a lot because water is very similar to air in the way that they move and bend, and react. And she's like very free-spirited, where Katara is very down-to-earth and motherly, and they clash too. Now that the characters are all out of the way, and this show, now I know that I'm really biased because this show came out in 2005 and I was still a little kid at this point, probably in middle school, but I try to not let my bias and my nostalgia get in the way when I do these reviews, because if I let that get in the way, then am I really giving an honest review? You know, I try not to let that get in the way of a certain book series or a certain show, because I want to give my honest review of the show, not just sit here and spit nostalgia at you guys. But the first thing that I didn't think about when I was little, but I thought about watching it now, is how the Fire Nation actually came into power. Now I know the show explains, well, they did it when the comet came around. They're 10 times stronger because of this Sozin comet. It gives them more power to draw on. But that still makes no sense, because the Fire Nation is one nation, even with this immense power boost from this comet. And then you have the air nomads, the water tribe, and the earthbenders. And what is left after a fire? Earth is left after a fire. What helps put out fires? That's right, water. And then what can smother and help a fire live? Air can. So even with this immense power boost from this comet that the firebenders got, I don't see how they won. Because there are 3 different tribes, 3 other tribes that could have teamed up together and just annihilated the Fire Nation. But somehow they came into power for so long, 100 years. And you're telling me that in that 100-year span there's never been another eclipse? I know eclipses are rare, but still, even without the eclipse, there are 3 other nations that could stomp the Fire Nation. I know they say technically the Earthbenders were the last to fall, but I feel like even without the Avatar, they could have won. And I know you're probably sitting down there in the comments saying, well, oh, there's got to be a conflict of the show somewhere. Yeah, I get it. We needed our bad guy, and fire is always considered to be a symbol of evil, like, in hell you'll burn, and oh, demons come with fire, you know, so why not make the Fire Nation the bad guys? I get it, I got it, I get it, I know, but, you know, it just doesn't make any sense to me how the Fire Nation was able to hold power for as long as they did, especially considering they needed that power boost from the comet in order to get that power in the first place. That's just something that I thought about now, being older than I did when I first watched it. But with that criticism aside, do I still immensely love this show? Yes, I really love this show. It is very smartly written. It is very, very well flushed out. The world feels realistic. It feels grounded. The physics are physically possible, except when they use bending to enhance their abilities, because the people working on the show wanted it to be physically possible to do the things in the show. Each of the 4 elements are rooted in 4 different martial arts. You have circle walking for airbending. You have Tai Chi for the water bending. And then you have 2 other bendings for the fire and the earth. And when I watched the behind the scenes stuff that comes on the DVD, they talked about how they had a martial arts expert come in and kind of teach the crew these movements and teach them for about, what did they say, 6 months to a year about these martial arts just so they could get the martial arts correct and make it be real. And the only time it's not physically possible is if they're using bending to enhance their abilities, like when Aang uses airbending to help him fly or to help him run super fast, or like when they bend water to help them swim super fast. Of course, that's not going to be physically possible for us humans watching the show because we can't airbend, waterbend, firebend, whatever. But still, the amount of care they put into making this world seem realistic and seem huge and seem physically possible is just crazy to me. And on top of that, the world building was greatly explained. It never felt like you were sitting there going, can we get to the point? I want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I want to see it. It never felt like that. It never did. And then the characters seem real. They go through real struggles. They have real emotions. They have real connections. And it just, they seem like they could step out of the show and have a real conversation with you in the world. And that is great for the animators. And recently, I watched the show with headphones in when I watched Netflix on my phone. And the sound design of this show is just another level that helps it feel so real. I mean, it's different when you're watching it on TV than when you have it on headphones, because when you're watching it on the TV, there is so many sounds that you cannot hear versus watching it on headphones. And just those little details of the sounds you can only hear with headphones in just make it all the more bigger. And I don't know, they put way too much effort into this show, and that's one of the reasons it's still one of the most popular shows to this day. And not only that, but the animation to the show, yes, it's not as good as it could have been. Sometimes you can see the frames of the movements. But what do you expect? This show came out in 2004. And it's not like a movie where they had such a huge budget to do it. No, they work on a TV budget, which is considerably less than a movie budget. So you're going to have those issues. But it still felt very flowing and very well done. And they say that this show was one of the first shows to have a confirmed kill on TV, with one of the characters dying off in a battle. But, I don't know. And then did I talk about Aang? I think I forgot to talk about Aang. Oh dear. But the whole show is about Aang, so. And I don't know. It feels like a story we've seen over and over again, you know, the zero to hero. But normally from the zero to hero, we don't get to see the journey to hero. And Aang going through and mastering waterbending. And there are times where he struggles because air, its natural opposite is earth, because where air is light on their feet and constantly moving, and earth is very grounded and rooted and tough. So he struggles with trying to learn earthbending because it's his natural opposite. And then, because he accidentally burns Katara with fire, not paying attention, he is terrified to firebend. And then there's Aang's avatar state. Aang, he is very scared of his avatar state because he's like, I can't control it, and I have so much more power in this state because I can tap into all of my previous lives' skills and wisdom and knowledge all at once. And then I can't control myself once I'm in it. So at first, he is very terrified of his avatar state because he's got this much strength that he cannot control. So understandably, he is reluctant to go into the avatar state because he knows how much of a danger to not only the bad guys, but everyone around him he is while he's in it. So it's not like he goes into it all the time. He does not rely on his avatar state in order to win, because if he did that, the show would probably be over in a couple episodes. And on top of him being afraid of his avatar state, he was taught that every single life is precious. Every single life has meaning and is here for a reason and should be treated with care, which I agree with. But I also know that there are times when you need to step up and you need to hurt someone to protect or save other people. And that's what Aang struggles with. He goes, everyone is telling me that the Fire Lord has to die in order for this war to stop. But I don't want to kill him. I don't want to be a killer. And so there's another struggle he has to deal with. And he's only 12 years old. And on top of only being 12 years old, he has like a couple months to master all 4 elements, where the avatars before him had years to master it. So not only is he on a time crunch, but he's only 12, technically. So that's just all the more struggle. I couldn't imagine being a 12-year-old kid having to decide the fate of someone or risk the entire world. That is a lot of weight to put on one 12-year-old kid. And he feels very responsible because he feels like not only does he not want to kill the Fire Lord, but he's kind of the reason the war started in the first place. Because instead of taking his avatar responsibilities, he ran, got trapped in the ice, and because he wasn't there to stop the Fire Lord, the war happened. That is a lot of weight to put on a little kid. A lot of weight. And he handles it okay. I mean, there are moments where he breaks down, and that is understandable in the circumstances because he's seeing all of this stuff for the first time, and for him, it feels like only a couple of hours passed, not 100 years. So he has to not only deal with everything of finding his powers, but going through and seeing how much has changed, seeing his home completely destroyed, seeing what the Fire Nation did and being like, I used to have friends here. I had friends all over the world, and now it seems like everyone is trying to kill me. And geez, that's a lot of weight on a kid. And I feel like Aang eventually really steps up into his role, and he manages to go through it really well. And to me, this show, it doesn't talk down to the audience like we're stupid, like a lot of shows do nowadays. It doesn't worry about offending anyone. It says what it wants to say when it wants to say it. And it makes a good show because of that. It's not worried about offending anyone. It wants to tell the story it wants to tell, and it does it nicely. And there are some that are oppressed. There are some in power. There are some that are in poverty. Those are real life struggles, and it handles them well. Whereas shows nowadays are trying to be as sugar-coated and sweet and talk down to you like you're a 6-year-old, even the adult shows. This one feels so, I don't know what the word is. I had the word, but it went gone. This one feels so much, they put so much care into this show. And they show the audience. They do more showing than telling. And that's what a show is supposed to do. And it really works. Am I biased to this show? Very much so. Do I still really enjoy this show? Yes. But aside from the Fire Nation being in power when they should have been taken out a long time ago, I realize that the show needs a conflict. So we had conflict. And it is such a good show, still to this day. And I know it's coming back into popularity because it was recently put on Netflix, but this is a show I very much enjoyed from when it came out to this day. So, yeah. I still give this show a 5 out of 5, despite my complaining about the Fire Nation war. But, yeah, I really love it. And I love how the characters came together and how their dynamic worked. And I really love how Zuko went from, like, this horrible bad person to, like, being part of their group and trying to figure out, how do I be nice? I'm so used to being full of hate. How do I be a nice person? But this show worked really well. The characters were really good chemistry. They actually got kids to voice Aang. They actually took their time with it and put so much care into it that it shows. And I love this show, and I highly recommend watching it if you're someone that hasn't. That's why I tried not to spoil anything major. But then, I am also deciding that I'm going to go talk about the movie. Yay, I get to watch that abomination again. And then I'll binge The Legend of Korra. This one's not on Netflix. At least it wasn't when I looked. But I'll have to watch this on DVD. But yeah, I'll talk about the movie once I watch it later today. And then I'll talk about Legend of Korra whenever I get that finished. And hopefully soon I'll be done with Of Blood and Bone. My grandma wants to borrow it, so I'll have to get that done by the next time I stay with her. And yeah, that is my thoughts on Avatar: The Last Airbender. What are your thoughts about the show? You can leave me a comment down below. You can talk to me about any other shows you want me to check out. And I think that Avatar movie will be the first actual movie I review, so that's nice. Alright, hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.